What's up, Prig pals? In my previous video, we talked about some of the best general dictionaries that you can pick up when you run across an unfamiliar word. But the truth about it is you'll get a lot more out of the minuscule effort it takes to look it up if you just keep in mind a few pieces of information that will help you use a dictionary like a prig. Now, for the purposes of today's discussion, I will be employing Merriam-Webster's Collegiate, the 11th edition, mostly because it's the one dictionary that I can use without my arm getting tired. So if you have your own hard copy, I suggest you break it out, or log on to the website, or use the mobile app, which I'm sure all of you have downloaded. With that said, let's get underway. The first aspect of a definition that a prig should note when looking up a word is its inflections. Inflections are alternative forms of nouns, verbs, and adjectives that essentially change their number, tense or grammatical person, and comparative degree respectively. So for a noun, for example, heart, inflected plural, becomes hearts. For a verb, love can become loved or loving, and inflected to the third person singular, becomes loves. And for an adjective, cute, inflected to the comparative degree, becomes cuter, while inflected to the superlative degree, becomes cutest. It's a good idea to pay attention to these inflectional listings next to the head word when you look it up. For example, to make the plural of the word kid, simply add the letter S and you get kids, as we do for so many other words. To make the plural of child, on the other hand, you don't simply add the letter S, and thus, the plural is listed next to the word placed at the beginning of the entry, children. Or take the intransitive verb lie, as in to lie down. Merriam-Webster lists the past tense, past participle, and present participle in that order, lay, lain, and lying respectively. And just because you really can't talk about one without talking about the other, notice that for the transitive verb lay, the past tense is listed once, because the past tense and the past participle are identical. He laid and he had laid. Now, some of you may be wondering, what about where the dictionary gives me a choice? How am I supposed to choose between indexes and indices? A variant introduced by or shows up just as often as the first listed inflection. A variant introduced by also, or less commonly, shows up appreciably less so. So, under the entry for criterion, we notice that the plurals listed are 1. Criteria, and also criterions. What this means is that criterions, as the plural of criterion, shows up somewhat less frequently than criteria. For glamorous, we notice that the variant spelling glamorous with another U is introduced by also, so we can be sure that it's less common. And by the way, glamour without the U is apparently less common than glamour with the U. How's that for confusing? We see the same notation with practice, with the penultimate letter S, as compared with practice with the penultimate letter C. Not that the former isn't a British spelling anyway. On the other hand, the word indices is just as common as indexes to go by Merriam-Webster, although if you do a little bit more research, you learn that indices is the form most often selected in medical, technical, and scientific contexts. Whereas in most general contexts, people choose indexes. Memorandums shows up just as often as memoranda, and for just about every dreamed, we can in fact find a dreamt. We see these same notations or also and less commonly when it comes to pronunciations as well. For example, according to Merriam-Webster, niche is more common than the faux refined niche. But surprisingly, the phonetically inconsistent flaccid is more common than flaccid. And I bring up those more controversial points just to remind you that all dictionaries, even the most prescriptive of them, tell us how words are used, not how they should be used. That's why it's a good idea to add one or more usage guides to your library. Maybe I'll make a video about those one day. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss that one. And while you're at it, smash that like button. Now, as for the senses, Merriam-Webster lists its senses chronologically, as does Webster's New World. Now, the publisher has been moving lately to change that system to what it obviously believes will present a more user-friendly experience. After all, what sense does it make if, when looking up the word deliver, for example, the first sense you see is the original one, which meant to set free? This is, of course, the sense that we can find in biblical contexts, such as the Lord's Prayer, which contains a line asking God to, quote, deliver us from evil. It's also the sense we used to hear used in obstetrics, meaning that originally it was the doctor's job to deliver the mother from the labors that she had gone into as she was about to give birth. Random House Webster's and Collins Dictionary, you'll remember the two dictionaries comprised in dictionary.com, list their entries in order of those most common in current usage. So they have the system that Merriam-Webster may be trying to migrate to. The American Heritage Dictionary follows a somewhat different approach, organizing senses, quote, for the convenience of the reader, with the central and often the most commonly sought meaning first. Well, that's all I got, folks. If you're looking for more info, there's plenty of it in the preface of your nearest dictionary.
Read it.
Feel free to leave a comment below if there's some other issue that I touched upon in this larger discussion that you'd like me to delve into in greater detail in a later video. Don't be shy, but be careful. And remember, propriety is always in.